The morning sun poured through the windows of Ben's diner, casting a warm glow over the checkered floor tiles and red vinyl booths. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air as the breakfast crowd chatted over plates of pancakes and eggs. In the corner booth, where the sunlight hit just right, sat two men whose friendship had been forged in circumstances most people couldn't imagine. Andre leaned back against the booth, his hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the worst of the world and chosen to be kind anyway. The lines around his eyes crinkled as he laughed at something his friend had said. "Man, you're full of it today," Andre said, shaking his head. He wore a simple gray t-shirt with jeans and a worn navy blue cap with Army veteran stitched in gold thread across the front. "Tell me more about this community center. How are those kids doing?" Across from him, Ray took a bite of his blueberry pancakes before answering. 3 years younger than Andre, Ray had the same watchful eyes that never quite lost the habit of scanning a room. His cap matched Andre's, though his was a bit newer. The sleeves of his button-up shirt were rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms marked with a few scars, souvenirs from his last deployment. "Those kids, man," Ray said, his face lighting up. "You should see them. Remember that boy I told you about last month? Darnell, the one who kept getting into fights?" Andre nodded, cutting into his omelet. "The one whose brother's in jail, right? That's him. Well, turns out he's incredible with computers. Like scary good. I got this old coding program donated. Thought maybe a few kids might be interested." This boy sat down and didn't move for 3 hours straight. Created his own little game by the end of the week. "No kidding?" Andre's eyebrows rose. "That's something. I'm telling you. These kids just need someone to see them, you know? See what they're good at instead of always focusing on the trouble." Ray took a sip of his orange juice. "Reminds me of Jackson from our unit. Remember how the lieutenant was always on his case until they discovered he could fix anything with an engine?" Andre laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Jackson! Man, I haven't thought about him in years. Wonder what he's up to now. Probably running a garage somewhere. Making bank," Ray said with a grin. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, stopped by their table. Her name tag read Patty, and she'd been serving them breakfast once a month for almost 2 years now. "You boys need a refill?" she asked, coffee pot already in hand. "Always, Patty." "Thanks," Andre said, sliding his mug toward her. "How's your son doing?" Ray asked her. "Still playing basketball?" Patty's face softened as she poured coffee for both men. "Made the varsity team. His first game is next Friday." "That's great," Ray said. "Tell him we said congratulations." "I will." "He still talks about that time you two came to his school career day. Made quite an impression." She gave them a warm smile before moving on to the next table. Around them, the diner hummed with the comfortable sounds of morning conversation and silverware against plates. An older couple by the window shared sections of the newspaper between bites of toast. At the counter, a group of construction workers gulped down breakfast before their shift. It was a slice of everyday America, people from all walks of life sharing space over the simple pleasure of a good meal. "So how's the dispatch job treating you?" Ray asked, returning to their conversation. "Still working those crazy night shifts?" Andre nodded, stirring cream into his fresh coffee. "Yeah, but I'm used to it now. Reminds me of night watch, except I'm in a comfortable chair with snacks." He chuckled. "You know what's funny? All those years in the service training for combat, and now the hardest thing I do is keep my voice calm when someone's having the worst day of their life. That takes a different kind of strength," Ray said. "Being the first person someone talks to in an emergency? That's not nothing." "Sometimes I think about our first deployment," Andre said, his voice growing quieter. "Remember how young we all were? Thought we knew everything." Ray nodded, understanding exactly what his friend meant without needing more words. They'd both enlisted right after high school. Two kids from the same neighborhood looking for a way to pay for college and see the world. Neither could have imagined what lay ahead. The blistering heat, the weight of the gear, the bonds formed with people who became closer than family, and the losses that still visited them in quiet moments. "Thompson's daughter graduated college last month," Ray said after a moment. "He sent me pictures. She looks just like him." "No way." Andre smiled, remembering their fallen comrade. He'd be so proud, first in her family. "Going to med school next year." They fell into a comfortable silence, both thinking about the friend who hadn't made it home. Outside, cars passed by on the main street. People rushing to work or school, wrapped up in their own lives. In here, time seemed to slow down a little, allowing space for remembrance. "You still having those dreams?" Ray asked eventually, his voice casual but his eyes watchful. Andre shrugged. "Not as much. The therapy group helps. You should come sometime." "Maybe," Ray said, though they both knew he probably wouldn't. He had his own ways of coping. The community center, working with the kids, keeping busy. "My sister says I should try that meditation app she uses." Andre laughed. "I can just picture you sitting cross-legged saying Om with your eyes closed." "Hey, don't knock it till you try it," Ray grinned, pointing his fork at his friend. "Apparently I need to process my emotions or something. Your sister might be onto something there." Yeah. She's always sending me these articles about veteran health and stuff. Did you know gardening is supposed to help with stress? She's trying to get me to grow tomatoes on my balcony." Andre's shoulders shook with laughter. "You gardening? The man who couldn't keep a cactus alive in the barracks? That wasn't my fault. Jenkins knocked it over during inspection. Whatever helps you sleep at night, man." They continued eating, their conversation flowing easily between serious topics and lighthearted teasing, the way it only can between people who have seen each other at their best and worst. They talked about Ray's sister's new baby, Andre's plans to buy a house next year, the upcoming Veterans Charity Golf Tournament that neither of them knew how to play, but had signed up for anyway. "You're gonna look ridiculous in those golf pants," Andre said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Not as ridiculous as you'll look trying to hit that tiny ball," Ray countered. "Remember the baseball game against the Air Force guys? That was different. The sun was in my eyes. For 9 innings?" Their laughter drew a few glances from nearby tables, the warm, genuine kind that makes strangers smile without knowing why. In a world that often felt divided, there was something reassuring about seeing two friends enjoying each other's company on a regular Tuesday morning. "We should get Jenkins to come to the golf thing," Andre suggested. "He's back in town now, right?" "Yeah, working at his uncle's hardware store. I ran into him last week. He's doing good. Got a little girl now, if you can believe it." Andre shook his head in wonder. "Man, time flies. Seems like yesterday we were all just kids ourselves." As they talked, the diner continued to fill with the morning rush. The bell above the door jingled as people came and went. Patty moved efficiently between tables, refilling coffee and taking orders. From the kitchen came the sizzle of the grill and the occasional shout between the cook and the waitstaff. "Oh, before I forget," Ray reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded flyer. "We're doing this mentorship program at the center, pairing kids with adults in different careers. I know you're busy, but if you could come talk to them about emergency services sometime." Andre took the flyer, scanning it quickly. "Of course, man. Just let me know when." "I could bring some of the dispatch equipment, show them how it works. They'd love that. These kids, they need to see people like us doing all kinds of jobs, you know? Shows them what's possible." Andre nodded, folding the flyer and tucking it into his shirt pocket. "I'm in. Just not on Thursdays, that's when I take my mom to her doctor appointments. How is Ms. Elaine doing?" "Better. The new medication is helping with her arthritis. Still bosses me around like I'm 12, though." Ray grinned. "That's because to her you'll always be 12. They continued their meal, savoring not just the food but the simple pleasure of friendship and shared history. Neither of them knew that their peaceful breakfast was about to be interrupted, or that the next few minutes would test their patience and dignity in ways they hadn't expected. For now, they were just two veterans enjoying a meal, carrying their experiences with them but not defined by them, finding their place in civilian life one day at a time. The front door of Ben's diner swung open, bringing with it a blast of cool air and the sharp jingle of the bell above the entrance. Officer Kevin Mercer stepped inside, his face set in a hard expression that suggested his morning hadn't gone well. Dark circles under his eyes hinted at too many double shifts and not enough sleep. His uniform was crisp and pressed, but his shoulders carried the tension of a man who'd been on high alert for too long. The breakfast crowd barely looked up, used to seeing police officers come in for coffee or a quick meal. Patty, the waitress, glanced up from where she was refilling an elderly couple's coffee cups and gave Officer Mercer a polite nod. He didn't return the gesture, his eyes already scanning the diner with the automatic assessment of someone trained to look for trouble. His gaze paused briefly on each table, the construction workers finishing up their meals, the older couple sharing sections of the newspaper, a young mother trying to keep her toddler from throwing scrambled eggs on the floor. Then his attention landed on the corner booth where Andre and Ray sat, deep in conversation, their veteran caps visible even from across the room. Something in Officer Mercer's expression shifted. A slight narrowing of the eyes, a tightening around the mouth. He made his way to the counter, never taking his eyes off the two men in the corner. "Coffee black," he told the young man behind the counter. "To go." While waiting for his order, Officer Mercer continued watching Andre and Ray. The two veterans were laughing about something, completely unaware of the attention they were receiving. Ray was gesturing with his hands as he told a story while Andre shook his head, grinning. "Rough morning?" asked the young man as he placed the coffee on the counter. Officer Mercer grunted in response, dropping a few bills next to the cup. "Had a call about suspicious individuals in the area. Two men matching certain descriptions." The young man glanced in the direction Officer Mercer had been looking. "Well, hope you find who you're looking for," he said, collecting the money and moving on to his next customer. Instead of leaving with his coffee, Officer Mercer took a long sip, replaced the lid, and then began walking toward the corner booth. His posture changed as he approached, back straighter, hand casually resting near his belt, steps measured and deliberate. Ray was the first to notice the officer's approach. His sentence trailed off mid-word, a subtle shift in his expression alerting Andre, who turned slightly in his seat. Both men's faces remained neutral, but their bodies tensed almost imperceptibly, a reflex born from years of training to notice when something in their environment had changed. "Morning. Gentlemen," Officer Mercer said, his tone professionally cool but with an edge to it. "Enjoying your breakfast?" Andre nodded politely. "Yes, sir. Ben's makes the best omelets in town." "I haven't tried them myself," the officer replied, making no move to leave. "Don't think I've seen you two around here before." Ray's eyebrows rose slightly. "We come here every month, actually. Been doing it for about 2 years now." Officer Mercer took another sip of his coffee, his eyes moving between the two men. "Every month, huh? You don't live locally, then?" "I'm over in Riverdale," Andre said, referring to a neighborhood about 20 minutes away. "Ray's closer, just off Maple Street." "Maple Street," the officer repeated as if testing the truth of the statement. "What number?" The question hung in the air, its purpose unclear but its intention unmistakable. A few diners at nearby tables glanced over, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Patty paused while setting down plates at another booth, her experienced eyes taking in the situation. "Is there a problem, officer?" Ray asked calmly, his hands visible on the table, one still holding his fork. "Just doing my job," Officer Mercer replied. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in the area. Two men fitting certain descriptions." Andre and Ray exchanged a brief look. "What kind of suspicious activity?" Andre asked, his voice level. "And what descriptions exactly?" Ray added. Officer Mercer didn't answer directly. Instead, he gestured toward their caps. "You two military?" "Yes, sir," Andre replied. "Army, both of us, that so?" The officer's tone carried a hint of doubt. "Mind if I see some ID?" The request hung in the air, charged with unspoken implications. By now, several other diners were openly watching the interaction. The construction workers at the counter had paused their conversation, and the young mother was holding her child a little closer. "Actually, I do mind," Ray said quietly but firmly. "We're just having breakfast, officer. We haven't done anything wrong, and I'd like to know why you're asking us for identification." Officer Mercer's expression hardened. "Sir, when an officer asks for identification, he needs reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed," Andre finished for him, his tone respectful but unwavering. "That's the law. So unless you can tell us what crime you suspect us of committing, we're not obligated to show you anything." A tense silence followed. Officer Mercer shifted his weight, coffee forgotten in his hand. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "I'm just following up on reports. 2 men were seen checking out parked cars down the block about an hour ago. I'm trying to rule you out, that's all. By asking if we live on Maple Street," Ray countered. "How does that rule us out for something that happened down the block an hour ago?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Those are some nice watches you're wearing. Mind telling me where you got them?" Andre looked down at his wrist where a simple but good quality watch gleamed. It had been a gift from his mother when he completed his first tour. Ray's was similar, though a different brand. "This was a gift from my mother," Andre said, his voice still calm but with an undercurrent of growing frustration. "Officer, with all due respect, what's really going on here?" "I told you, no," Ray interrupted, setting down his fork. You told us there were reports of suspicious activity, but you haven't explained why you singled us out in a diner full of people. We're eating breakfast in full view of everyone, not prowling around parked cars. Officer Mercer's face flushed slightly. Those veteran caps can be bought at any army surplus store, you know. Doesn't prove anything. The comment landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of tension through the booth and beyond. At the counter, one of the construction workers, an older man with a weathered face, straightened up, his attention now fully on the unfolding scene. Patty had stopped pretending to wipe down a nearby table and was watching openly, a frown etched on her face. Andre took a deep breath, exchanging another glance with Ray. Both men had faced far worse than this. Hostile environments, actual enemy fire, the loss of friends in combat. This was different, but in some ways just as difficult to navigate. Officer, Andre said carefully, my name is Andre Wilson. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq with the United States Army. I now work as an emergency dispatcher for the county. My friend here is Raymond Carter, who served in the same unit and now runs a community center for at-risk youth. We meet once a month for breakfast to catch up, just like hundreds of other veterans across this country do every day. Officer Mercer didn't respond immediately, his eyes still assessing them. Now, Andre continued, you can either tell us what specific reason you have for questioning us, or we'd like to finish our breakfast in peace. Let me see those IDs, Officer Mercer insisted, his voice hardening. Ray shook his head slowly. Not without reasonable suspicion, officer. That's our right. You two being difficult makes me think you have something to hide, Officer Mercer said, his hand now resting more deliberately near his belt. Asking for our legal rights isn't being difficult, Ray pointed out. It's being American. The diner had grown noticeably quieter. Even the clattering from the kitchen seemed to have paused, as if the whole place was holding its breath. The confrontation had moved beyond a simple misunderstanding into something more concerning, a power dynamic playing out over breakfast plates and coffee cups. Maybe you should call for backup, Andre suggested, his voice still steady. If we match the description of suspects so perfectly, surely this warrants more than just a casual questioning over breakfast. The slight sarcasm wasn't lost on Officer Mercer, whose face darkened further. Or, Ray added, you could tell us what these suspects actually look like, beyond just being 2 men. Height, weight, clothing, age, any actual distinguishing features that match us specifically. Officer Mercer didn't answer right away. His coffee cup was cooling in his hand, forgotten. Around them, the tension in the diner was palpable. A few customers were discreetly recording the interaction on their phones, while others looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to intervene or mind their own business. I don't appreciate your tone, Officer Mercer finally said, his voice tight. And we don't appreciate being singled out and questioned while trying to enjoy our breakfast, Andre replied. But here we are. The standoff continued, neither side willing to back down. What had started as a routine morning at Ben's diner had transformed into something charged with deeper societal tensions. A microcosm of larger issues playing out over cooling eggs and half-empty coffee cups. The next few moments would determine whether the situation escalated or found a path toward resolution. The silence in Ben's diner stretched like a rubber band pulled too tight. Patty had stopped pretending to clean nearby tables. The cook peeked through the service window, spatula in hand. Even the toddler who had been fussing earlier seemed to sense the tension, quietly munching on a piece of toast while her mother watched the scene unfold with worried eyes. Officer Mercer cleared his throat. Look, I'm just doing my job. There's been a string of car break-ins in this neighborhood. I got a call about 2 suspicious men in this area. And what made these men suspicious? Andre asked, his voice controlled but firm. What exactly was the description that led you to us specifically? The officer shifted his weight again, coffee cup still in hand. 2 male suspects. 1 taller, 1 shorter. Dark clothing. Ray let out a short, humorless laugh. That's it? 2 men, different heights, dark clothing. Officer, that could describe half the people in this diner. He gestured to his light blue button-up shirt. And I'm not even wearing dark clothing. More eyes turned toward them now. At the counter, the older construction worker with the weathered face whispered something to his colleagues. They all frowned, their gazes fixed on the confrontation in the corner booth. Sir, your attitude isn't helping the situation, Officer Mercer said, his voice taking on an edge. And your vague descriptions aren't helping us understand why we're being questioned, Andre countered. Two men of different heights in dark clothing doesn't explain why you walked past everyone else in this diner and came straight to our table. The implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear as day. Officer Mercer's face tightened. I don't appreciate what you're suggesting, he said. And we don't appreciate being profiled, Ray replied quietly. But here we are. The word profiled seemed to echo in the now silent diner. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The young man behind the counter stared down at the floor. Patty crossed her arms, her kind face now set in lines of concern. Officer Mercer took a step closer to their table, his posture stiffening. I'm going to need to see some ID, now. On what grounds? Andre asked, still calm but unwavering. Obstruction of justice, the officer replied. I'm conducting an investigation and you're refusing to cooperate. Ray shook his head slowly. That's not how obstruction works, officer. We're not interfering with any legitimate investigation. We're simply asking for the legal basis of your questioning, which you haven't provided. Officer Mercer's right hand drifted closer to his belt. Stand up, both of you. Hands where I can see them. The situation was escalating quickly. Andre and Ray exchanged glances. A silent communication born from years of facing dangerous situations together. They understood the reality of their position. Even if they were completely in the right legally, this moment could turn dangerous in an instant. Officer, please, Andre said, his voice deliberately gentle now. Let's take a breath here. We're just having breakfast. We come here every month. Anyone in this diner can vouch for us. It's true, Patty spoke up suddenly, stepping forward. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her voice was steady. These gentlemen are regular customers. They've been coming here for years. Officer Mercer barely glanced at her. Ma'am, please stay out of this. No, I won't, Patty said, surprising herself with her firmness. This isn't right, and you know it. Patty, it's okay, Ray said gently. We've got this. The bell above the diner door jingled as a new customer entered. An older black man with salt and pepper hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He paused just inside the entrance, taking in the scene before him. His eyes widened slightly as he recognized Andre and Ray, then narrowed as he noted the officer's stance. Keith, he called out, his deep voice carrying across the diner. What's going on here? Officer Mercer turned, startled by the familiar voice. Chief Johnson, I didn't expect to see you here. The new arrival, clearly the police chief, made his way through the diner, nodding to a few regular customers he recognized. He was dressed in civilian clothes, khakis and a polo shirt, but carried himself with unmistakable authority. I didn't expect to walk into Ben's for my usual Tuesday breakfast and find one of my officers confronting two citizens who don't appear to be causing any trouble, Chief Johnson replied, coming to stand beside Officer Mercer. What's the situation? Officer Mercer straightened up, his demeanor shifting instantly. Sir, I received a call about suspicious individuals possibly involved in the recent car break-ins. These men matched the general description. Chief Johnson's eyebrows rose. What description would that be? Two males, one taller than the other, in dark clothing, Officer Mercer replied, the words sounding increasingly flimsy as he spoke them. Chief Johnson looked at Ray's light blue shirt, then at Andre's gray t-shirt, then back at Officer Mercer. His expression spoke volumes. Keith, he said quietly, we'll discuss this back at the station. For now, I think these gentlemen would like to finish their breakfast in peace. For a moment, it looked like Officer Mercer might argue. His jaw worked silently, his eyes darting between his superior and the two veterans. Finally, he gave a stiff nod. Yes, sir, he said. I apologize for the disturbance, Chief Johnson said to Andre and Ray, his tone sincere. Please enjoy the rest of your meal. As Officer Mercer turned to leave, something in Ray seemed to make a decision. Wait, he called out. Both officers paused. Officer Mercer, Ray said, his voice level. I'd like to say something, if I may. The tension in the diner shifted, uncertainty replacing fear as everyone wondered what would happen next. Chief Johnson nodded slightly, giving Ray permission to continue. I understand you have a difficult job, Ray began, meeting Officer Mercer's eyes. I respect that. Every day you put on that uniform not knowing what you'll face. That takes courage. Officer Mercer's expression was guarded, unsure where this was going. But understanding goes both ways. Ray continued. When you approached our table, you didn't see two veterans having breakfast. You didn't see Andre, who stays up all night taking emergency calls from people having the worst days of their lives. You didn't see me, who spends every day working with kids to keep them off the streets and give them better options than I had growing up. Ray's words hung in the air, simple but powerful. You saw two men who fit some vague description, or maybe you just saw the color of our skin. And in that moment, nothing else about us mattered. Officer Mercer's face flushed, but he didn't interrupt. I've been pulled over 17 times in the last 3 years, Ray said quietly. 17 times, and I've never received a ticket. Never been charged with anything. Just routine checks and matching descriptions. Andre's number is 12. Andre nodded silently, confirming the count. Now, I'm not saying you're a bad person, Ray continued. I don't know you well enough to judge that, but I am saying that what happened here today, it doesn't just hurt us. It hurts you too. It hurts your ability to do your job well. It hurts the community's trust in you. It hurts everyone. The diner remained silent, every person present absorbing Ray's words. Even the toddler seemed transfixed, her piece of toast forgotten in her tiny hand. I run a community center over on Pine Street, Ray said, his tone shifting slightly. We have a program where officers come and talk to the kids. Build relationships. Show them that police aren't just people who show up when something bad happens. The kids need to see that, especially now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, offering it to Officer Mercer. If you're interested, we could use another officer for the program. Might give you a different perspective on the community you serve. Officer Mercer stared at the card for a long moment, visibly conflicted. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what he would do. Finally, slowly, he reached out and took the card. I'll think about it, he said, his voice rough with emotion he was clearly trying to suppress. Chief Johnson watched the exchange with thoughtful eyes. I think that would be an excellent idea, Keith, he said quietly. Then to Ray and Andre. Thank you, gentlemen. Enjoy your breakfast. As the two officers made their way to the door, the atmosphere in the diner began to shift. The rubber band of tension that had been stretched so tight gradually relaxed. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Patty gave Andre and Ray a small, sad smile before returning to her other customers. That was something, Andre said quietly once the officers had left. You really think he'll show up at the center? Ray shrugged, picking up his fork again. Maybe, maybe not. But at least he has the option now. Sometimes that's all you can do. Offer another path and hope they take it. Andre nodded, taking a sip of his now cold coffee. Our food's gone cold too. Worth it, Ray replied with a small smile. Besides, Patty's bringing us fresh plates, look. Sure enough, Patty was approaching with 2 steaming plates. Behind her came the cook himself, a burly man with tattooed arms who rarely left his kitchen. On the house, Patty said, setting down the fresh food. Ben insisted. The cook, Ben himself, nodded gruffly. Nobody gets treated like that in my place. Not on my watch. Thank you, Andre said, genuinely touched by the gesture. That's very kind. Ben shrugged, uncomfortable with the gratitude. Just doing what's right. Enjoy your meal. As he turned to go back to his kitchen, the construction workers at the counter stood up, leaving money for their bills. The oldest one, with the weathered face, paused by Andre and Ray's table. My son served in Afghanistan too, he said simply. Thank you both. One by one, other diners stopped by their table. A quick word of support, a hand on the shoulder, a quiet thank you. The young mother brought her toddler over, who shyly offered Ray a slightly soggy piece of toast. The elderly couple from the window booth insisted on paying for their meal, despite Ben's refusal to charge them. The simple breakfast at Ben's diner had become something more, a moment of community in a world that often seemed determined to drive people apart. As Andre and Ray finally resumed their meal, the conversation around them flowed more freely, connections forming between strangers who had witnessed something important together. The diner had mostly returned to normal by the time Andre and Ray were halfway through their fresh breakfast. Conversations hummed around them, plates clattered, and the smell of coffee and bacon once again dominated the atmosphere. But something had changed. The air felt different, charged with a strange mix of lingering tension and newfound connection. People kept glancing their way, not with suspicion, but with something that looked like respect. A young woman typing on her laptop smiled at them when she caught Ray's eye. One of the construction workers raised his coffee mug in a small salute when Andre looked over. Well, That wasn't how I expected our monthly breakfast to go, Andre said. Cutting into his steaming omelet, Ray shook his head. No, definitely not on the agenda. He paused, setting down his fork. You think I was too hard on him? Andre considered this. The officer? No, you were firm but fair. Respectful even when he wasn't. That's more than a lot of people would have managed. I don't want to be part of making things worse, you know? Ray's voice was quieter now. There's already so much division, but I also couldn't just sit there and say nothing. You did the right thing, Andre assured him. That business card was a masterstroke. Offered a way forward instead of just calling him out. Ray nodded slowly. Hope he takes it. The kids at the center could use another positive example of someone in uniform. As they spoke, the bell above the door jingled again. Both men glanced up automatically, a reflex now after the morning's events. It wasn't Officer Mercer returning, but rather a middle-aged woman in workout clothes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, phone in hand. She scanned the diner, then walked directly to their table. Excuse me, she said, her voice slightly breathless. Are you the two veterans who just stood up to that police officer? Andre and Ray exchanged puzzled looks. Word travels fast, Andre commented. The woman held up her phone. It's already on social media. Someone recorded part of it and posted it online. It's getting shared like crazy. Wait, what? Ray straightened up. Someone recorded us? She nodded, turning her phone screen toward them. There it was. A video showing the confrontation from their perspective, capturing Officer Mercer's questioning and Ray's measured response. The video had clearly been shot discreetly from a few booths away. Oh man, Andre groaned. That's the last thing we wanted. But it's a good thing, the woman insisted. People need to see this. Not the confrontation part, though that's important too, but how you handled it. Especially what you said at the end, she nodded toward Ray. About offering another path. Ray shook his head. We were just trying to have breakfast. Well, you did more than that, she said. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. My brother's in the Army, stationed overseas right now. It means a lot to see veterans being respected for who they are. With that, she gave them a small smile and headed to the counter to place her order. Andre ran a hand over his face. Great, we're viral. Could be worse, Ray said with a shrug. At least they caught my good side. Despite his joke, his expression remained troubled. Both men understood the implications. What had been a private confrontation was now public, with all the complications that could bring. Think the officer will see it? Andre asked. Probably, Ray sighed. Might make him less likely to show up at the center now. They ate in silence for a few moments, processing this new development. Around them, the diner continued its morning rhythm, though several customers were now looking at their phones, possibly watching the very video they'd just learned about. The bell jingled again. This time, both men consciously avoided looking up, determined to finish their breakfast without further interruption. But footsteps approached their table and a throat cleared. Excuse me, gentlemen. The voice was familiar. They looked up to see Chief Johnson standing there again, this time alone. His expression was unreadable. May I join you for a moment? He asked. Andre gestured to the empty space beside him. Of course, Chief. Chief Johnson slid into the booth, removing his reading glasses and placing them on the table. Up close, the lines around his eyes spoke of decades of stress and responsibility. I wanted to apologize properly, he began. What happened earlier was unacceptable. Officer Mercer's behavior didn't reflect the standards I try to uphold in my department. We appreciate that, Andre said. The chief nodded. I also wanted you to know that I've already seen the video. Ray groaned. That was fast. Social media moves at the speed of light these days, Chief Johnson said with a slight smile. For better or worse? Mostly worse in my experience, Andre commented. Not always, the chief replied. Sometimes it forces accountability that might otherwise be avoided. He leaned forward slightly. That video is actually why I came back. I wanted to talk to you both before things potentially get more complicated. Ray and Andre exchanged glances. What do you mean by complicated? Ray asked. Chief Johnson sighed deeply. Videos like this tend to spark strong reactions. Some people will see it as evidence of ongoing problems in policing. Others will defend Officer Mercer regardless of his actions. The department will face questions. Officer Mercer will face scrutiny, and unfortunately you two might find yourselves unwilling symbols in a debate that's much larger than what happened here today. Andre nodded slowly. We get it. We've been symbols before, whether we wanted to be or not. Exactly, Chief Johnson said. And I wanted to ask what you want to happen next. The question caught them both by surprise. What we want, Ray repeated. Yes, the chief said firmly. Too often in situations like this, the people most affected don't get a say in what happens afterward. I'm trying a different approach. Ray considered this carefully. What are our options? Well, Chief Johnson began, I could discipline Officer Mercer through official channels, suspension, sensitivity training, that sort of thing. But that would be public, and it might just make him resentful rather than reflective. He paused, looking at each of them. Or we could try something different. Something more in line with what you suggested earlier. He nodded toward Ray. About him coming to your community center. You mean giving him a chance to learn and grow from this? Andre asked. Chief Johnson nodded. Exactly. Not excusing his behavior, but channeling the consequences toward something constructive. Ray leaned back, thinking. And you'd be okay with that? Instead of formal discipline? I didn't say instead of, the chief clarified. But I believe in addressing the root causes, not just the symptoms. Officer Mercer has been on the force for 5 years. His record isn't perfect, but it also isn't filled with complaints. I think today was part of a pattern that needs correction, not just punishment. Andre glanced at Ray, a silent communication passing between them. After a moment, Ray nodded. Here's what we propose, Andre said. Officer Mercer spends 1 day a week for the next month at Ray's community center, working with the kids, getting to know the community as people, not just potential suspects. And during that time, he rides with a more experienced officer who can model better practices. Chief Johnson considered this. That's fair. I can make that happen. One more thing, Ray added. We'd like him to come back here, to this diner, and apologize to everyone who witnessed what happened today, especially Patty and Ben who stood up for us. The chief's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. I think that's reasonable. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong, especially in public. It would be good for him, and for the community to see, Andre pointed out. Actions have consequences, but they also have resolutions. Chief Johnson extended his hand across the table. Thank you both for your service, both in uniform and today. The way you handled the situation showed remarkable restraint and wisdom. They shook hands, the agreement sealed. One last question, the chief said as he prepared to leave. That video, it doesn't show your military IDs or any personal details, does it? Ray shook his head. No, we never actually showed our IDs. Why? Just thinking about your privacy, Chief Johnson replied. This situation will draw enough attention without adding that layer to it. As the chief stood to leave, Andre asked, How did you know us, by the way? When you first walked in, you seemed to recognize us immediately. Chief Johnson smiled. My nephew attended your summer program last year, he said to Ray. The one where you taught the kids about emergency services, he nodded to Andre. Changed his life. He's applying to community college now, wants to become an EMT. Both men smiled, genuine pleasure lighting their faces. That's great to hear, Ray said. Tell him to stop by the center sometime. We're always looking for former students to come back and mentor the younger kids. I'll do that, Chief Johnson promised. And gentlemen, your breakfast is on me next month. With a final nod, he left the diner. As the door closed behind him, Patty approached their table with a fresh pot of coffee. Everything okay? She asked, refilling their cups. Actually, yes, Andre said, somewhat surprised to realize it was true. I think it might be. Patty smiled, relief evident in her eyes. Good, that's good. You know, my son was watching that video just now. He texted me about it. She hesitated, then added, He said you two are heroes. Not just for your military service, but for what happened today. For standing up for yourselves with dignity. Ray looked down at his plate, uncomfortable with the praise. We're not heroes, Patty. We're just trying to navigate a complicated world like everyone else. Well, you did it with class today, she said firmly. And that counts for something in my book. As she walked away, Andre and Ray found themselves at the center of a diner that was somehow both the same as when they'd arrived, and entirely different. The same checkered floor tiles, the same red vinyl booths, the same smell of coffee and bacon. But the people around them had been changed by what they'd witnessed. A small moment of confrontation and resolution that reflected larger truths about their community and country. So, Andre said, taking a sip of his fresh coffee. Same time next month? Ray laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Absolutely. Though maybe we should try the pancakes next time. These omelets seem to bring drama. Their laughter joined the chorus of sounds in the diner, conversations, clinking silverware, the sizzle of the grill, all blending together into the soundtrack of a community slowly, imperfectly but genuinely trying to understand itself a little better. 1 month later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Ben's diner just as it had before. The checkered floor tiles gleamed under the warm light, and the red vinyl booths were filled with the usual breakfast crowd. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air, creating that same comfortable atmosphere that had made Ben's a neighborhood staple for over 20 years. In the corner booth, where the sunlight hit just right, Andre and Ray sat across from each other, continuing their monthly tradition. This time Andre had ordered the pancakes while Ray stuck with his usual omelet. "I still say you're missing out," Ray said, gesturing at his plate with his fork. "Ben's omelets are the best in town." "After last month, I figured I'd try something different," Andre replied with a grin, pouring maple syrup over his stack of pancakes. Less drama this way. They laughed, the sound easy and comfortable between them. A month had passed since their breakfast had been interrupted by Officer Mercer. A month since the confrontation that had unexpectedly gone viral online. "How's your mom doing?" Ray asked, changing the subject. "Her arthritis any better with the new medication?" Andre nodded, cutting into his pancakes. "Much better. She's even talking about joining that senior water aerobics class at the community center. Speaking of which, how's everything going there?" Ray's face lit up the way it always did when he talked about his work. "Actually, something amazing happened yesterday. Remember that kid I told you about, Darnell? The one who's good with computers? The one who created his own game, right? That's him. Well, he just got accepted to that tech summer program at the university. Full scholarship." Ray's voice filled with pride. "Kid's going places." "That's fantastic," Andre said sincerely. "You made that happen, you know." Ray shook his head modestly. "Nah, he did the work. I just showed him it was possible." "Sometimes that's all it takes," Andre pointed out. "Just knowing something's possible can change everything." They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, the diner buzzing with conversation around them. Patty moved efficiently between tables, coffee pot in hand, stopping to chat with regulars. The young man behind the counter called out orders to Ben in the kitchen. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning, peaceful in its routine. The bell above the door jingled, and both men glanced up instinctively. Their eyes widened slightly as Officer Kevin Mercer stepped into the diner, not in uniform this time, but dressed in jeans and a simple dark blue sweater. He paused just inside the door, scanning the room until his gaze landed on their corner booth. "Looks like we've got company," Andre murmured, setting down his fork. Ray nodded, watching as the officer made his way toward their table. Unlike last month, Officer Mercer's posture was different, less rigid, more hesitant. The confidence of his uniform was gone, replaced by what looked like genuine nervousness. "Good morning," Officer Mercer said when he reached their table, his voice quieter than they remembered. "Mind if I join you for a minute?" Andre and Ray exchanged a quick glance, then Ray gestured to the empty space beside him. "Have a seat." Officer Mercer slid into the booth, placing his hands flat on the table in front of him. For a moment, he seemed unsure where to begin. "I wanted to thank you," he finally said, looking first at Ray. "For the past few weeks at the community center, I know it wasn't something you had to do, giving me that opportunity. Over the past month, as agreed with Chief Johnson, Officer Mercer had spent one day each week at Ray's community center, working with the kids and getting to know the community from a different perspective. How's it been going?" Andre asked, his tone neutral but not unfriendly. Officer Mercer considered the question seriously. "Honestly, it's been eye-opening. Those kids, they're nothing like I expected." "What did you expect?" Ray asked. The officer shrugged, a hint of embarrassment crossing his face. "I don't know. Trouble, I guess, attitude. Instead, they're just kids, smart kids, funny, curious." He paused. "They ask a lot of questions about being a police officer. Hard questions sometimes. Kids are good at that," Andre commented, cutting right to the heart of things. Officer Mercer nodded. "There's this one kid, Darnell. He's been showing me this game he created. Something about navigating different worlds and solving puzzles to progress. He explained it like it was the simplest thing in the world and I could barely keep up." Ray smiled. Darnell has that effect on people. He just got accepted to a special tech program at the university, actually. Really? That's great, Officer Mercer said, and the genuine enthusiasm in his voice surprised both veterans. He deserves it. Kid's a genius. A brief silence fell over the table, not uncomfortable but thoughtful. Patty approached with her coffee pot, raising her eyebrows slightly at seeing Officer Mercer sitting with Andre and Ray. Coffee? She offered. Please, the officer replied. As she filled a mug for him, he added, Patty, I also wanted to apologize to you for my behavior last month. It was unprofessional and disruptive to your workplace. Patty's face softened slightly. Well, thank you for saying that. Apology accepted. She gave a small nod before moving on to her other tables. I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past month, Officer Mercer continued once Patty had left. About that day. About my approach to the job in general. And? Andre prompted when the officer paused. And I realized I've been carrying some assumptions I didn't even know I had. He stirred sugar into his coffee, eyes fixed on the swirling liquid. Officer Matthews, the veteran I've been riding with, he pointed out something I never noticed before. When I'm on patrol, I tend to watch certain people more closely than others. Not because they're doing anything suspicious, but because they fit a picture in my head of what trouble looks like. He looked up, meeting their eyes directly for the first time. That's what happened that day with you two. I made assumptions based on, not on anything you were actually doing. That took guts to admit, Ray said quietly. Officer Mercer shrugged. Maybe, but it's the truth. He took a sip of his coffee. The thing is, I never thought of myself as, I've always just thought I was being vigilant, doing my job, looking for potential problems before they happened. The problem is when you only see certain people as potential problems, Andre pointed out. Yeah, I get that now. Officer Mercer nodded. Or I'm starting to anyway. Ray leaned forward slightly. So what happens next? After your month at the center is up? Officer Mercer straightened up a bit. Actually, that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. I'd like to keep coming. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Those kids, they're starting to trust me. Some of them, anyway. And I don't want to be just another adult who shows up for a while and then disappears from their lives. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Ray and Andre exchanged another glance, a silent communication passing between them. We'd be happy to have you continue, Ray said, especially if you could help with the basketball program. We're always short on coaches. A small smile tugged at Officer Mercer's lips. I played point guard in high school. Not that anyone would believe it now, he added, patting his stomach self-deprecatingly. Perfect, Ray said. Tuesdays and Thursdays 4 to 6, the kids would love it. Officer Mercer nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. There's one more thing. That video, the one of our interaction last month, it made some waves at the department. We figured it might, Andre said. Chief Johnson used it in our latest training session, Officer Mercer explained, as an example of how not to approach citizens without cause and how assumptions can escalate situations unnecessarily. How did that go over? Ray asked. About like you'd expect. Some officers got defensive. Others took it to heart. It started some important conversations, though. He paused. Actually, the chief asked if you two might be willing to come speak at a department training day. Share your perspective. Totally up to you, of course. Andre looked at Ray, eyebrows raised in question. I'd be willing.